Hey friends! Alright, we're doing it. We're doing the last reading wrap-up from 2020. We are 9 months into 2021, but we're catching up. In December, I was participating in 2 different readathons, the Queer Lit readathon and the Reindeer readathon. I was on Team Snowflake for the Reindeer readathon, and we did win. So, doing 2 readathons meant I tried to stretch the books I was reading and make sure I read books that qualified for both readathon challenges during the less than 1 week where these 2 challenges overlapped. Altogether, I read 16 books in December. Let's start by talking about children's literature and the middle grade books that I read. I finished 5 middle grade books in December, and it was fantastic. First, I read Maybe a Fox by Kathy Appelt and Allison McGee. It's a dual narrative between 2 sisters, one who dies unexpectedly in the beginning of the book, and whose spirit is reincarnated in a baby fox. The fox does not know or understand that she is the other girl's sister, but she sees her grieving and understands that it is her job to help her. Obviously, this book deals with some pretty heavy themes, mostly death and grief, and how we move on after we lose the people we love the most. I'm giving Maybe a Fox by Kathy Appelt and Allison McGee 4 stars. Next, I read A Series of Unfortunate Events by Lemony Snicket. I read the first 2 books in the series, The Bad Beginning and The Reptile Room. I didn't have access to the full series as a child, so I never read all of the books. I loved the recent Netflix adaptation of it though, and was eager to read these books. And yes, a great many terrible and unfortunate things happen to the Baudelaire children in these books, but as a child reading these books, I felt confident that I could overcome any problem if I had people to help me. As an adult reading these books, I felt more determined to listen to and help the children in my life. I'm giving The Bad Beginning and The Reptile Room by Lemony Snicket 4 stars. I also picked up Sal and Gabby Break the Universe by Carlos Hernandez. Sal is a new student at a performing arts school, and when he has trouble with a bully, he decides to use his superpower to rip a hole in the universe and pull a prank that would be funny in order to defuse the situation. De-escalation tactics, things the police don't know about. This lands him in a bit of trouble. So we meet the friendly but firm Principal Torres and Gabby, the student council president, who rushes in to defend the bully and Sal from the consequences of their actions. This book deals with some big things like bullying, the multiverse, and also chronic illness. Sal is diabetic, Gabby's infant brother is in the hospital for an autoimmune disorder, and the 2 of them form a friendship at the hospital when they decide to search the multiverse for a cure for Gabby's brother. The sequel to this book has since come out, Sal and Gabby Fix the Universe. It's great. I'm giving Sal and Gabby Break the Universe by Carlos Hernandez 4 stars. Finally, I read Song of the Deep by Brian Hastings. This novel is the adaptation of a video game of the same name. It was a fun story, but it very much felt like a video game adaptation as well. It had a pretty fleshed out story, but it really felt like each story beat was a mission. If you're looking for an underwater adventure about a girl building a submarine to find her missing sailor father and discovering a world of magic and dangerous automatons, then this book is an amazing book for you. If you're looking for a strong character-driven story, then this probably isn't for you. I'm giving Song of the Deep by Brian Hastings 3 stars. I read 2 comics in December as well. Now this month more than ever we have a great example of comics being a medium to tell a story and not actually a genre. That said, I am still separating them into their own section for simplicity. Is this a nuanced take? No, but I will continue to do this. So first we have The Witch Boy by Molly Knox Ostertag. This was a reread to fit one of the prompts for the readathon. This is a cute story about a boy born into a magical family where all of the men become shapeshifters and all of the women are trained to be witches. But one boy's extremely gender powers never come in, and he has a fascination with witchcraft. He wants to do witchcraft even though everyone says it's wrong for a boy to be a witch. But when his family is in danger, he uses his natural abilities to help save them, even though they think that's wrong. I'm giving The Witch Boy by Molly Knox Ostertag 4 stars. The other comic I read was the memoir Genderqueer by Maya Kababe as the writer and illustrator and Phoebe Kababe as the colorist. This is Maya's story about growing up and discovering her gender, figuring out her self-identity, how to come out, and what it means to be non-binary, and how to think about gender identity personally, and how to help friends and family understand gender identity. It was deeply personal. I'm giving Genderqueer by Maya Kababe and Phoebe Kababe 4 stars. On to the next genre. I read 6 young adult fiction books in December. Young adult fiction is still the genre that I consider home for me. even though I am now in my late 20s. First, let's talk about the book All We Can Do Is Wait by Richard Lawson. This entire story takes place over one day in a hospital waiting room. After a bridge collapses, 5 young teens meet and wait together to hear the fate of their loved ones. The rest of the story is told through flashbacks of their relationships with the people they're waiting with and people they're waiting for. In this rotating point of view, we see a pair of siblings dealing with the death of a friend from last summer and now facing the possibility of losing their parents too. A girl who could lose her protective older sister who was keeping her safe from an abusive ex-boyfriend, a boy anxiously awaiting news about his girlfriend, and a girl who doesn't share as much but is waiting for news about her father. They all came to the hospital alone, trying to get news about what's going on in a disaster that affected so many people. But they came together to comfort each other as they wait. I'm giving All We Can Do Is Wait by Richard Lawson 4 stars. Next, we have a young adult fantasy book, In Other Lands by Sarah Rees Brennan. This is about an annoying boy who is accepted into a magic school when he is 13. He has to cross over into the magical land and attend what is essentially a military school. There are 2 tracks, one for warriors and one for politicians and strategists. Anyways, he immediately falls for an elven girl, and in elf society, gender roles are switched, so he deals with the misogynistic attitudes of her human peers, while she is dishing it right back at them due to their cultural differences and stereotypes being flipped. And her best friend is a human warrior who everyone expects to be a star pupil due to his family's ranking in the military, and he does not disappoint. The 3 form a weirdly intense friend group as they grow up together. This book has gay and bisexual representation as we see these 3 teenagers discover who they are while at this military school. I found the gender discussion in this book both heavy-handed and lacking nuance, but I think the bisexual plotline was handled pretty well, and I loved the magical world that was built in this book. I'm giving In Other Lands by Sarah Rees Brennan 4 stars. I also read the young adult science fiction book The Summer Prince by Leia Dawn Johnson. This book is set in a dystopian version of Brazil. The world nearly ended after a plague and nuclear disasters, but now things have recovered. We're living in a future of advanced technology, of people that have centuries to live, and therefore the youth of the country aren't even taken seriously, even as they are considered youth for decades. I've seen some Brazilian reviewers object to this book and the way that Brazil is presented as an inherently exotic location without a lot of depth, and Brazilians as over-sexualized. I cannot speak to that as an Asian book reviewer, but it's probably something to keep in mind if you decide to read it. This is a very sexual book. It is about an artist who falls in love with a boy who, for political reasons, only has a year to live. He is the summer prince, he is bisexual, he loves her, and her male best friend. They get wrapped up in a whirlwind of fame, even though the older citizens of their country write off their art and activism as ultimately meaningless, given the summer prince's impending death. I felt this book lacked emotional depth while reading it. It was an interesting premise, but a lot of the story fell flat. I'm giving The Summer Prince by Leia Dawn Johnson 3 stars. Finally, to put myself in a Christmassy mood, during a time where I couldn't celebrate with my family, I read the entire Dash and Lily series by Rachael Cohn and David Levithan. This included Dash and Lily's book of Dares, which was adapted into a Netflix series that I still haven't seen, The 12 Days of Dash and Lily, and Mind the Gap, Dash and Lily. These are beautiful holiday romances. Dash and Lily's Book of Dares is a neat, cute story, and it's about trading a journal back and forth with a mysterious stranger, one who is bright and genuine, and who loves Christmas even though they feel abandoned by their family this year, and one who is cynical and has accepted their loneliness as a part of their lives, and they misinterpret all of the things they're saying through their own lens of experiencing the holiday. The second book, The 12 Days of Dash and Lily, follows the pair around their 1-year anniversary as they try to recapture the holiday magic from last year after a particularly difficult year. The final book, Mind the Gap, Dash and Lily, was set in London as the pair now live on separate continents. The first 2 books really felt like a romance that was also a love letter to New York City, but all of these books filled me with a kind of nostalgia for the holidays I wished I had. Ones filled with family and love and sharing what you have with the people you care about. I'm giving Dash and Lily's Book of Dares and The 12 Days of Dash and Lily 4 stars. I'm giving Mind the Gap, Dash and Lily 3 stars. all worth reading. Rachael Cohn and David Levithan do great work together. Next, I read one classic book. I'm trying to read more classics, so I picked up Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Frankenstein was shorter and more interesting than literally any pop culture led me to believe. It is a story about a man who has brought life into the world, but because he feels like this life is monstrous, he abandons it, and this decision haunts him. His creation is fast and strong and capable of intelligent thought and feelings, and as he learns about the world around him, he gets mad at his deadbeat dad for abandoning him like that. This story is about secrets. It's about the violence of society towards that which they do not understand, and it is about how the trauma perpetuated by society can warp otherwise good and moral individuals. Highly intriguing, and once again, way shorter than I thought it was. I'm giving Frankenstein by Mary Shelley 4 stars. Finally, the last genre we're going to discuss today is nonfiction. I read 2 nonfiction books, not counting Genderqueer, which was a memoir told through comics. Let's begin When They Call You a Terrorist, a Black Lives Matter memoir by Patrice Khan-Coolers and Asha Bandele. This is a memoir about what it means to be a black woman in America and what it means to fight for justice for all of America. It is about the systemic racism experienced by black people with a particular eye to the way black men have been treated by law enforcement. It is a book about activism and the way that it makes you a target, but how that doesn't actually matter when you're already targeted because of the color of your skin and the neighborhood you live in. I'm giving When They Call You a Terrorist, a Black Lives Matter memoir by Patrice Khan-Coolers and Asha Bandele 4 stars. Finally, the last book I want to talk about in this video is How to Hide an Empire, A History of the Greater United States by Daniel Immerwahr. This is a book about American colonialism and also how the United States has manufactured a society in which we don't consider ourselves colonists, even though we actively have colonies now. We call them territories, we've changed our language and our maps to fit the idea of America we have in our heads, and we don't actually teach about ongoing American colonialism in our schools. It's a problem. It's a problem that very few people have the resources to reckon with because everyone acts like it's a problem of the past, but it's still there. I found this history book to be enlightening. As someone that works primarily in Asian organizing and is married to a Puerto Rican, I particularly enjoyed the parts on the Philippines and Puerto Rico. I'm giving How to Hide an Empire by Daniel Immerwahr 4 stars. Those are all 16 books I read in December. Let me know if you read any of these books down in the comments, and thanks so much for watching this video. If you want to see more from me, please subscribe, watch another video of mine, or support me on Patreon. And hey, I love you!